Hey, it's me, James. Happy Monday to you all. I am filming this week's Oracle Outlook video reading on Monday, April the 28th, 2025. And I am honoring the request of a viewer. So this is a shout out to Ismail, who asked me in a comment thread in a previous Oracle Outlook video if I ever worked with multiple decks in a reading session, and if I have, would I be willing to do one on camera? And so to answer both questions, I typically don't unless I am working with angel cards. I did that back in the day when I was learning how to read angel cards. I would work with more than one deck doing a reading, but I usually don't do it either for myself or working with my personal clients. But I wanted to honor the request. So it took me a minute to circle back to actually do the video, just because I was considering the decks to use, and I wanted to work with decks that were of a similar size, that kind of thing. So I finally narrowed it down to two of my personal deck creations. So before I get into it, if you are new here, thank you so much for stopping by and giving me a visit. And if you're a returning viewer and visitor, thank you so much for circling back. For those of you who are here for the first time, I have been reading cards since 1999, and I started making my own decks in 2020. So for the last 5 years, I've been making a slew of decks. Some of them I offer to the public in my Make Playing Cards Marketplace site. I will leave a link to that in the description box below so you all could check out the decks I have available. But the deck on the left is an Oracle deck I made last year. I was going through a bit of a rough spot, and the deck that is here on the table on the left was part of my process of moving through that challenging time. So the deck is the Inner Wisdom Oracle, and I made it, like I said, in 2024. I was going through my second Saturn return. If you are familiar with astrology, the energy of that, coupled with the fact that I was moving through a 9 personal year. If you are fluent in numerology, you will know what that means. So I had both of those energies happening at the same time, and I was moving through a great deal of existential angst, and that was very helpful in helping me move through that. So that is going to be the first deck that I work with here on the left, and on the right is my foundational deck, which is the Mitchell Playing Card Tarot. This is my commemorative edition of the deck because, as I said, I've been reading cards for 25 years, and when I got into card reading, I started with playing cards and tarot, and so this is a hybrid of a playing card deck and the major arcana from tarot. But again, both decks are playing card size. Again, I wanted 2 decks of the same size just for space on the table, and so we're going to jump right in. So this week's reading session is going to be a little longer than usual just because I'm working with 2 decks, and I'm going to stick with my line of 5. So we're going to have a double line of 5 spread and reading for today. So I'm going to move the Mitchell Playing Card Tarot, and I'm going to shuffle the Inner Wisdom Oracle for a moment, and then I'm going to extract the 5 cards from this for the top line. This is going to be the top line of the double line. So as I do for my general readings for the collective, I always ask for the information, for the insight, the guidance, and advice that's going to be most helpful and beneficial as we move through the course of the week. But I also give the cards permission to just show me the story that could potentially unfold as well. So I'm asking for both those things. I'm going to shuffle this deck one more time. Okay, now I'm going to cut this deck. fan it out. And I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. Okay, so we have the 5 cards. Sorry, I jostled the camera there. I have the 5 cards that are going to make up the top line. I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up. We're going to move that to one side. And I'm going to put the cards in order. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Move them so we can pull them back later. So now I have the Mitchell playing card tarot in my hand. I'm going to go ahead and now shuffle these cards. Again, focusing on my intention for the information, the insight, guidance, and advice that is going to be most helpful. Alright. Same thing, gonna go ahead and cut the deck. Right, so you can see the 5 cards at the bottom of the screen there. I'm going to take the remainder up and we'll move that to one side. Okay, so now that I have these cards, I'm going to spread them out towards the bottom of the screen in the order that they were selected. Alright, now we're going to bring in the other 5 cards right here. We're going to lay those on top. So this is card 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the cards vertically, which means I'm going to read these cards together, then these, then these, then these, and these. So what I will do is also too, when I'm working with my oracle decks in particular, I have positional meanings for the 5 card line. So if you're new here, this is usually how I read it. The first cards are going to be the origin, basically what the situation or the jumping off point might be for the rest of the line, or why we're asking the particular question that we're asking if it was more specific. Second column is going to be expectations. What could we be expecting as the week unfolds? And then third set of cards are going to be what I call the heart of the matter. So this would be the central issue or the focus. It's a slight variation on the first card. Fourth card would be guidance or advice. This is guidance that's being offered by the cards for our consideration. And then the final cards would be the most likely or probable outcome. Okay, so going with the Inner Wisdom Oracle first, we have the Ibis card. Okay, so now the Inner Wisdom Oracle is kind of an updated version of my Oracle of Himm. That was actually the very first deck I made in 2020. So it's kind of an updated, maybe expanded version of this deck. Okay, so the Ibis card is about wisdom. And the reason for it, this is one of the animal cards in the deck, and all the animal cards are either like power animals, spirit animals, or animals that I have had experiential crossings with. Like they have actually crossed my path in different ways over time. But this card is about wisdom. And I'm looking at the card, and the bird is facing left, so that is a reference to the past. And I'm looking at that, and I'm also looking at the wall in the background with the Egyptian hieroglyphics. And so this is about the writing is on the wall, right? So that is a nod to saying like there's something that could be happening or unfolding that we have seen because we've seen signs of it. You know, just playing on the metaphor, the writings on the wall, right? I'm going with the idea of a wall. It could be the idea here about moving past our walls or our blocks or our limitations and restrictions, and being willing to give ourselves the gift of time in order to do that. But this is a card about wisdom, so it could just be wisdom gained from past experience, again with the hieroglyphics on the wall, or hieroglyphics on the wall. That is a pun for the past, and maybe moving beyond the past, right? But with the idea about the wisdom gained from that prior experience or those prior experiences. So that's what I would say about the Ibis card. Now, the bottom card from the Mitchell playing card tarot could be considered like maybe a clarifying card, or maybe giving us more information, one or the other. So the card here is, okay, so here we have the Jack of Clubs. So for me, the suit of clubs in playing card Cartomancy represents the public, something of a social nature, work or business. It's a suit of action, of progress, making progress. And also to, when I say work, it could be like work in the job sense, but it could also be work in like work and effort sense, right? So this is a Jack, and so a Jack can represent news or messages. So this could be like a PSA, which would be a public service announcement. Yeah, so this could be something having to do with news for the public, meaning news for the masses. It could be a social message. So with the Ibis card talking about wisdom gained through past experience, this might be something more of a collective nature in terms of the public, right? Like what have we learned, or we're hitting a wall and we're asking ourselves, maybe like the past is repeating itself and we're finding ourselves in a similar situation or position, and what are we going to do to work ourselves out of it? The Jack of Clubs is also known as the employee card. So for some people, some individuals, this might be news or messages related to job and employment. So there may be some changes with the Ibis card, some changes that are taking place at your job or within your job, right? And this is especially for those who are employees. Right? Now, it could also be somebody's changing jobs because I'm noticing the change in direction, right? The Ibis, on the Ibis card, was looking to the left, and the Jack of Clubs is looking to the right. And what I've known, just from my own experience of working with playing cards, this is a directional cue. So the Jack is actually looking at this, so this might actually be the message the Jack wants to convey if I just stick with this line of cards and not incorporate that. But with these two, I'm seeing the idea here of public news, news for the collective. It might be about a past or prior experience hitting a wall, wisdom gained through experience. What have we learned from that as a collective? Or have we learned from that as a collective? Right? This could be like, oh, some of us have seen the writing on the wall and other people could just have ignored it. Right? And that would be the Ibis looking one way and the Jack looking the other way. So some people saw it, other people did not, or if they did see it, they chose not to see it, if you get my drift, right? Okay, so that's what I want to say about these two cards. So there may be something unfolding about history repeating itself, and it's going to pertain to either a group of people or the larger collective. Yeah. And the other thing I just noticed this, I'm going to hold it up. As I set the card down, I was about to move on. I'm looking at the feather in the cap of the jack. And so this could be like, somebody having a feather in one's cap. So this might be regarding an achievement, or maybe an achievement in one's own mind. Yeah, depending on the person. Okay, so now let's move on to the next two cards. Like I said, these are going to be about expectations. So first, okay, so here we have, at the top, we have angels. And so if you are an angel person, this is a card that suggests, forming a more intimate bond or relationship with your angels, right? And this would be angels like more like your guardian angels rather than the archangels per se. But if it's not that for you, then I'm looking at the rainbow, and the rainbow is a nod for, going back to the angels just for a moment, the rainbow for me is a nod to my first experience with angels. I had a dream about angels, and they all appeared as different colored beams of light. So a rainbow for me represents like the full spectrum of angels. But aside from that, rainbows signify, weathering a storm, right? Because you can see rainbows sometimes after a significant storm. So this could just be about the expectation of getting to the other side of a metaphorical storm. I'm hearing in my head the Barry Manilow song, I Made It Through the Rain, right? And in that song, he's not just talking about himself, but he's talking about a group of people making it through the rain, yeah? So this could just be about weathering a storm, a metaphorical storm. Okay. Now, the next card here is, okay, so now this is the Three of Diamonds. For me, this is a card that talks about small financial growth or increase because of the number 3. And the suit of diamonds represents the material side of life. So one of those is money and finance. Now this could also be about either a part-time job, which is very interesting with the Jack of Clubs on the table, or a full-time job, right? So it could just be small financial increase, and it might be through either part-time work or full-time work, depending on your status. But now this could also be about energy. The suit of diamonds for me is about energy, so this could be about creative energy. Now, in terms of weathering a storm, I'm going to put the card down. In terms of weathering a storm, the Angels card, then this is about energy that seems to start and stop, on and off, push and pull kind of energy, yeah? So that would make sense maybe with the kind of moving through a little bit of stormy weather, yeah? Now, like I said before, if I was just going with this line, the Three of Diamonds might be the possible message of the Jack of Clubs because the Jack is facing this card. So if this were the message of the Jack for the collective, then this might be about looking at ways that we can achieve. 3 is the number of results, and then the feather in the cap on the Jack, right? Remember, this is about achievement. Having a feather in your cap would be ways to increase yourself financially, but this card would indicate like small financial increase, small financial growth. So that's what I'm seeing with the Three of Diamonds. So as expectation, this would make sense, right? Especially if we are weathering a storm having to do with economics, money and finance, that kind of thing. That would make sense as far as an expectation. And I'm looking at these two cards. I'm noticing here, maybe with the Jack, if people are looking for new work, Jack of Clubs, as an employee, then this would be talking about, doing so because you need to achieve some financial increase, right? So this might be for people like myself who maybe are working more than one job. Yeah. Okay. So there's that. And I'm looking to see here if I wanted to see something else about this pairing. Yeah, it makes me feel like the expectation here with the financial increase might be because hit a wall, or the writing is on the wall, and it has led to this. Okay, so now let's move on to the next two cards, being the heart of the matter, or the central issue or focus. So top card in the line is, we have, okay, so this is divine mind. So for lack of a better way of saying it, this is like the God card in the deck. For me, this is one of the words that I use to describe God as divine mind. It is a term that I discovered when I got involved in a spiritual movement called Unity, and that is metaphysics, Christian metaphysics. And so the idea here with the divine mind card, is that everything originates in mind, right? So I'm looking at this, and for maybe those of you who are watching who are not either religious or spiritual, this card can be about going to the source, right? Another word for divine mind would be source, or source energy, right? So this could be going to the source of a situation, condition, experience, right? Because in my spiritual circles, we also say that God is source, right? Or source energy. So this could just be getting to the source, or going to the source of a particular situation, condition, experience, right? And it could even be like, if this is about divine mind, and the idea here is that as human beings here, we are all, and this is just my philosophy, I'm not trying to impose this idea onto people, but we are individualized expressions or ideas in divine mind, yeah? And so it could just be a matter of coming back to maybe your mental patterns or mental lines of thought that maybe have played a role or a part in the experience that you are maybe moving through or wanting to move out of, kind of thing. So that's what I would say about the Divine Mind card. Now let's take a look at the card underneath it. And here we have, the Shadow card. Okay, so now this is a Major Arcana card in my deck. So Major Arcana cards carry more weight for me when they show up, just because of their importance, only because there's 22 of them in the deck. So when they show up out of a deck of 78, they carry a little bit more weight. So the Shadow card is actually the Devil card. I just relanguaged it in my deck. So it's very interesting that if you're looking at the dichotomy, if that wasn't lost on some of you, Divine Mind card is God, and then here we have the Shadow card, which is the Devil card, right? So here we have like a dichotomy between our maybe more positive aspects of self and our more challenging aspects of self, yeah? So the Devil card is about limitations, restrictions, bondage. This might be about materialism, maybe being too attached to the material, the physical, that kind of thing. With the Mask on the card, it's about taking a look at your role. For me, this card is about pretense sometimes, going with the not so positive aspects of the card. With the Mask, it's about pretense, putting on a false face or a false front. This could be about working through your shadow side, right? So this could be a nod for shadow work. Yeah, but it's about taking a look at the role. Are you now, in terms of commitment? Because this actually, the Devil card, it can be about commitment, or the Shadow card can be about commitment. But it would suggest like questioning why you are committing to what you're committing to. This card can be about overcommitment or committing yourself to the wrong things, quote unquote wrong things, because that is relative, right? The word wrong would be a relative thing. This card can also be about biases, prejudices, fears and phobias, and needing to move beyond them. I'm finding this interesting in the spiritual context with the Angels card, the Divine Mind card, and now the Shadow card. These three cards, right? And sometimes this card can be about, like, being our own worst enemy. Yeah? But if this is about, I'm coming back to the first card now in this line, if this is about a message for the collective, then here we have, at the heart of the matter, it's about people moving beyond or being willing to recognize their biases, their prejudices, things like that. And I'm noting that this is a Lenormand technique, what I'm about to do. I'm knighting the card, so I'm going up and moving over to, so these two cards are connected. Again, now remember, this is about history with the hieroglyphics on the wall. So this is about history, and history possibly repeating itself, right? And so we have the shadow card connecting to that. So this could be about, again, about limitations, restrictions, and this could be limitations and restrictions that are self-imposed. Remember, the idea about divine mind could be getting the idea or the revelation or the insight, like epiphany, aha, about the ways that we limit and restrict ourselves, or we are coming to a greater sense of awareness about how certain people and institutions in the collective are imposing limitations and restrictions on us. And it might be through money, finance, economics. Yeah? Now, it could be if other people are looking for more than one job, then the shadow card would say, I'm doing it because I want to pay the bills. Now, there's a story behind that. So when I was working at my one job, my one of two jobs, a long, long time ago, and I felt I was in a space where I was stuck in a rut, or that it just wasn't serving and supporting me in ways that I wanted to. And I had to come back to my original intention, divine mind, and ask myself, what was the reason I got the job? And I remember emphatically stating when I first got the job, I wanted the job to pay the bills. And it did that because I made great money. But the rest of it was so challenging, right? And so it's like you got what you wanted, but then you realize that you wanted more than that, right? So it's really a message about being really clear with your intentions, right? Especially if you're moving into a new situation or moving out of a situation. Like, what's the intention behind it? What was the motivating or underlying factor, heart of the matter, that made you pursue that particular endeavor, right? Or want to move forward with that endeavor, right? Now, if this is maybe about relationships, then the shadow card would be about not being treated fairly. Again, with the sense of bias, maybe double standards, things like that. Or that you are in a relationship in which you're being encouraged to look at your shadow in that. It reminds me of the song by Kelly Clarkson, Dark Side, and she sings that everybody's got a dark side, right? So it could just be a matter of taking a look, an honest look at your dark side, because we all have one, right? Okay, so now I'm going to move on to guidance or advice. Top card. We have the Reiki card. Okay, so now I am a Reiki practitioner, so this card, again, with this being a card, a deck, excuse me, that talks about my personal experiences, spiritually speaking, or with metaphysics. I am a Reiki practitioner, so this card is a nod to healing, right? And so I love the fact that I turned this over after what I just said about doing shadow work, right? And doing shadow work to kind of heal an experience for yourself, right? Because if you're a Reiki practitioner, if you're at least level 1, we are encouraged to give ourselves Reiki every day, right? So this could be what process of healing could you undergo that would better serve you regarding an experience or a situation or a condition. Now, it doesn't just have to be Reiki. There are other forms of energy healing modalities out there. Right now, off the top of my head, I'm thinking about healing touch and quantum touch. So this is not just about Reiki for those of you who are not Reiki practitioners. But this card is about, maybe putting the energy into healing a situation or experience. And you're doing it for you, first and foremost, so you can move through it. Right? And the other thing that I'm noticing with this card is that the man on the card is in prayer position, so he's praying. So the idea of prayer is, spiritually speaking, it's about asking, requesting, or petitioning spirit. And I love the fact that it's facing divine mind, right? Spirit to offer assistance in helping you move through an experience, yeah? Or maybe gaining the wisdom or the knowledge about a particular experience, because I'm noticing the halo behind the gentleman's head, right? So there's that. But it could also be, if you are not religious or spiritual, then this could just be, who do you need to ask? Who do you need to request assistance from? Maybe in an effort to help you move through an experience. Or it could be, who do we need to petition? I'm going to put the card down. Petition if it is more of a institutional type assistance, right? Who do we need to petition in order to get the help or assistance we need to move through an experience? But I'm noticing here, this very top line, there's a lot of spiritual cards here. These 3 cards, Angels, Divine Mind, and the Reiki card. Right? Because this is about being connected to universal life force or universal life energy, right? That would be the bigger energy collective. So I'm seeing that. And then the other thing here could just be a matter of, what do you need to do to recover and recuperate? This could be a card that's suggesting, taking care of your physical body, because I'm noticing that it knights to the 3 of diamonds, right? Remember, this is about the physical, the material energy, right? How funny, we had the Reiki card connected to the 3 of diamonds, which is about energy, right? So it could be like, what do you need to do to restore your energy levels, right? So that could be recovery, recuperation of the physical, yeah? So I'm seeing that as well. Okay, let's move on to the card underneath it. And here we have another 3 card. So we have a repetition of the number 3. So 3 is a number of being productive. It's about growth, increase and expansion, a number of creativity. So here we have the 3 of clubs. Now this is, again, clubs is about work or business. So there may be something having to do with job and employment again, or business if you are self-employed, or business at hand, or something that you are working through in terms of putting effort into, right? This card would suggest, if that's the case, with the working through something, putting some effort into something, you might see some initial results. The 3 is a number of results. So this would be like seeing the first stages of results, yeah? So seeing that your efforts are paying off, right? Because the clubs and the diamonds here in this line can talk about, the energy of work and effort being rewarded. Meaning you could see an initial payoff or some sort of payoff. Now, if this is about job and employment, this card is about training. This is on-the-job training. So this could be somebody who is tasked with training other people on the job, or that there's going to be some small increase in terms of a job. And then there may be training. If I go with order of the cards, there may be training that comes with that. Now the other thing I will say is that this is known as the author card. So this could be about paying attention to writings. Now, talked about writing on the wall, yeah? So this could be somebody who's actually doing some writing. So this could be maybe writing about some spiritual topic or matter with the angels, divine mind, Reiki cards above it. Or this could even be somebody who's writing under a pseudonym or like a ghostwriter, right? Somebody who's not using their maybe given birth name or their true identity, that kind of thing. But again, this would be about authoring something, training on the job, or some level of increase with work or business, right? So it could just be a matter of, especially coming after the shadow card, if this is about an employee, then maybe there's not necessarily somebody who's training, but somebody who's seeing work increase, right? So they may see a small financial increase, but there may be the burden shadow of work increase as well. And so this might outweigh the financial increase. Okay. And so now let's take a look at the most likely or probable outcome cards. Starting with the top, we have the Ganesha card. Okay, so now, story about this. Over time, I've had not just encounters with angels, but I've also had encounters with deities that are not on the path that I'm walking. So, as I said earlier, I am a Christian metaphysician, and I started having experiences with Hindu deities, and Ganesha was one of them. So my Ganesha experience, because it's similar to the angels experience, I had a dream, and I was in a person's house, and he was a well-known, I didn't know, he wasn't like somebody in waking life who's well-known, but in the dream, he was a well-known person who worked in television. And I was at his house, and I was marveling at his awards. He had a lot of awards on the shelf, and one of them was an Emmy Award. And an Emmy Award, you know, is given to those who achieve outstanding work in television, right? So I'm going somewhere with this, right? Outstanding work. And the Emmy was in the form of Ganesha. So it was a golden statue of Ganesha, but it was an Emmy Award, right? So I'm going to put the card down. So when I woke up from the dream, I took it to mean that I was being acknowledged for some work that I was doing. Remember now, clubs is the pursuit of work and effort, right? So there was something I was working on in my waking life that my dreaming self, my wiser self, my higher self was giving me some props, right? Because I was actually the man in the dream who had all the awards, yeah? So because in my idea, when it comes to dream work, everything in the dream is some aspect of the dreamer, right? So I was actually the guy in the dream, and who had achieved that. And so I was noticing my own achievement on some level, yeah? And so the Emmy Award, so Emmy is a pun for M-E, capital M, capital E, which is me, right? So I noticed that as well. So it's highlighting that. But now Ganesha, in this particular case, is about moving through or the removal of obstacles. And how significant is that the Ganesha card knights to the shadow card, right? So this card is about the removal of limitations and restrictions. And I love seeing it on the opposite side of the Ibis card with the wall here, yeah? So this is either about a limitation or restriction in the collective that is actively being worked on being removed, right? It's either that or we as individuals are removing our own blocks. Either the blocks that we believe are self-imposed, meaning we've done it to ourselves, or we've imposed it on ourselves, and we are actively working on removing that. right? And one of those things, if I knight back to here, would be about having a bias about someone or something, having a prejudice, having a fear or phobia that is really based on, and I know I'm probably going to get some heat for the word, but I'll take it, ignorance, right? The shadow card is about being in the dark, being unenlightened, right? And people get fired up about the word ignorance, but it's really just about not knowing something. And so maybe the whole gist here is about, again, removing or coming out of a place of ignorance by informing yourself, getting some more knowledge. Maybe, I'm looking at the image here, maybe getting yourself out of a particular information bubble and seeing other ways of looking at a situation or perspective. It's that kind of thing, right? But this is about the idea of the removal of a limitation or restriction or an obstacle. Now, if you are a spiritual practitioner, then this card, when it comes up, is about doing what's called road opener work. And that would be a nod to my more magical practitioners. If you're a magical practitioner, you know what I'm talking about. But this is about rituals that will allow roads to open up, right? And then the last thing I will say, with the Ganesha figure having an elephant head, two things. Number one, this could be about sensitivity, because elephants are very sensitive animals. Despite their size, they're very sensitive animals. So this could just be about honoring your sensitivity, yeah? And that could be intuitive sensitivity, being receptive to intuitive impressions, that kind of thing. But also to being mindful of your triggers this week, right? Especially with this card being knighting to the shadow card, right? Paying attention to your triggers, right? And maybe acknowledging that you're being triggered because your sensitivity is being heightened, yeah? Not as a fault. We don't want to fault ourselves, blame ourselves, shame ourselves. Just understanding that maybe you are an HSP, a highly sensitive person, and you have to really be mindful about what could trigger your sensitivity. Right? So that's the first thing that I wanted to say about this. And then the last thing I will say about the elephant head is that elephants are said to have excellent memories. And so I want to say this as it mirrors this card, the Ibis card, with the wall and the writing on the wall, is that people don't forget in terms of history, right? So it could just be a matter of, just saying like, okay, well, we can move through this, but we don't want to forget it. We don't want to forget that we had this experience, so we don't find ourselves in the same position or the same boat or having to deal with the same challenge again because we didn't learn the lesson the first go round. Right? And I'm going to say that we maybe like this is a nod for those who are attempting to erase certain aspects of history, right? It is up to us to not forget. Okay, last card. Oh, and here we have another major arcana card. This is the Hanging One. In more traditional decks, this is known as the Hanged Man. But I wanted something a little more neutral, right, in terms of gender, even though I have a figure of a young boy on a card, right? So the Hanging One is a card that can talk about reversals, setbacks, delays, right? Just because he is hanging upside down. But with him also hanging upside down, this is a card that talks about a change in outlook, right? If you are willing to shift your perspective, right, being upside down, you will see the world differently, right? He's hanging upside down, which allows him to see the world that he is experiencing differently, right? So this card can be about a change in outlook or having a different perspective, right? This card can also be about letting go of the past. I love the fact that it knights to divine mind. This is more for my religious or spiritual people who are watching. This combination is about letting go and letting God, right? And so one of the lessons I learned with the Hanging One is that for me, when I said I was going to let go and let God, I really didn't shadow, right? I was really in a tug of war with God, going back and forth. Even after I said I was going to let it go and I was going to give it to God, surrender it to God, I found that I didn't, right? So if you're really going to let go and let God, really let go and let God. So maybe take a look at, like, did you really let the situation go? Or are you still hanging on to it in some way, right? Now, with the shadow card being about shadow side, this card could be about working through our quote-unquote hang-ups, right? And with the shadow card, one of the things that could be is about you feeling like you are a martyr, right? And so would you be willing to let go of that role? Would you be willing to let go of that role that you're playing about being the martyr? And that would make sense too, also too, with Ganesha, the removal of limitations and restrictions and obstacles and blocks. Yeah. I love this. So it says here, whatever our hang-ups are, would we be willing, if I can get the words out, to let those go? Okay. So I'm going to end on that note, and that is going to wrap up this week's Oracle Outlook video. If you made it through to this point of this longer session, I want to thank you. I want to give you your props, and I want to thank you for sticking it out with me and making it to this point in the video. I do so appreciate the gift of your time. For Ismail in particular, if you made it all the way to this point, I hope you found this enjoyable because you were the one who requested an expanded session using more than one deck. So again, we worked with top line, my Inner Wisdom Oracle, bottom line, my Mitchell Playing Card Tarot, and I had a lot of fun doing this. So we might do this again depending on the feedback that I get. So James and Mitchell signing out. As I sign out, I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope that you have the best week possible. And I will see you in this space next week for the next Oracle Outlook video reading. So until then, take care.